Hello there, how are you doing? My name is Abraham Salako. I am a teacher, and today we want to talk about the things I wish I had done in my first year of teaching. And let me also say that these are the things you will learn, some lessons. I hope as teachers, even as students, you get to learn some lessons there. A quick background: I have been a teacher for the past 8 years. I was a teacher in Nigeria for 2 years, and in the space of those 2 years, I was privileged to teach in a primary school as a class teacher. If you understand what a class teacher means, you get to teach all the subjects: English, mathematics, all the subjects, just name it, you teach everything. And after my work at the primary school, I left to join an after school center. This center prepares students for JAM, and there's an exam in Nigeria called JAM and post UTME. So I was part of this center, and I was a physics and mathematics teacher in this center. And that was what we did. And that brought about my 2 years experience in Nigeria before traveling to Kazakhstan. Traveling to Kazakhstan, I switched to teaching English as an ESL teacher for the space of 6 years. So I have been a teacher here, a language teacher, and also a language learner here in Kazakhstan. I believe if you're a student or a teacher or someone that loves to teach, you get to learn a lot from this class. So without wasting much of our time, let's get started. The first thing I wish I had done better as a first year teacher was to create a routine. I think routine is life. One thing I have noticed about students in the past few years, in the past 8 years, it's good enough, is that students would jump on every opportunity to play, to have fun. Now, I am not saying to be a boring teacher or to make sure all your classes are serious. I say let condition your students. Let them know this is the time to be serious. There's time for game. Now, what I have done over the course of this 8 years is that I have learned to gamify some of my lessons. But the question is, you don't get to gamify your lessons every time. Some lessons you just have to do it. Sometimes you just have to do some quizzes where I have made it fun by we make our, for example, as a language teacher, we make it conversational, but by setting a routine, let them know. For example, if I have 3 hours of lessons, my students know that my first class is a conversation class, second class probably vocabulary class, and third class might be a test or, let's say, a game class. So they know that for advanced students, they know that we switch between gaming, texting, but unless you're in an IELTS group, and in that group, we know, oh, you're getting serious, we're doing tests and the likes. Set up that routine for them that when they know what they're coming to do, and they would not, or they will not even bother to ask you to play games. Yeah, I have set that condition, and it's so easy when your students know what they're doing, especially when you work in a school or in a center. You know what you're doing, and you don't. It's even easier for you because you don't have to think of what's next to do. Set a routine. Number two is to leave work at work. Oh, I think that's self-explanatory. As a teacher, you get to bring everything up sometimes. Not just, I think this works in all aspects of professions actually. I still struggle with it, even though I said it's things I wish I had done. Although better now, I try to compartmentalize, but still, there are times parents would call, a lot of people would call, and you just have to reply, check your attendance, know what's up with you. Students would even pop up with questions, but still try your best to keep work at work. Now, I said parents earlier. Let me use that as a segue into this number 3 point, which is parents are your assets. Never on, well, we have some parents that are interesting, but outside that, try to see parents as assets to yourself or to your development or raising the child. Excuse me. Sometimes children can be interesting. So I have found it that I used to think parents were nosy when they were, how's my child? How's some, that was many years ago. But since I became a language teacher, I have found myself in situations where I consistently update parents on the progress of their students. Maybe because there is no much focus on how the parents, some parents don't really focus, they just want to put the child there just to keep them busy. I update them, I contact them, not in the form of reporting when the child does anything bad, but it's in the form of this is what we're up to, this is the next thing, and this is where we're going to. That way, even the child knows you are in contact with the parent. My students know I am in contact with their parent. They know that if anything happens, their parents get to know when they do naughty things in class. But you could also use that as a threat if the parents are the disciplinarian kind of parents. Some parents, some students are not even scared of their parent. Let me put it that way. I wouldn't say scared. They don't respect their parent that much. But you know, understand what I'm saying. Any parent that asks you a lot of questions, turn them to your asset. No, don't just see them as they're pestering you. You can condition them to a specific time. Also, don't reply as quickly as possible. Reply when free, but when you reply, make sure you maximize the opportunity. Ask them questions. Number four is I wish I used my sick days well. When I was younger, I would go to work even during weekends, during a lot of things. And well, I think I don't want to say I used my youthful days. I'm still young, I'm still 31. I, I believe I used those days well in terms of working hard. Though I learned a lot, I must say. I worked as a teacher and also practically as a school assistant to the director, you know what I mean? And you had to do a lot of things then. Now, I try to use my holidays. My birthdays, I don't work. Well, my birthday is also a public holiday, so I try not to work on this day. I try to do some other things also. Once there's a public holiday, I try my best to ask my students if they're available. Remember, I do not work in a school, I work in a center. This, in a way, gives me the liberty to relax and to tell them I am off today. Whenever I feel down, I relax. I sleep. Yeah. One thing I wish I had known, this is number five, is that you at a point need to control or manage your voice. Sometimes you will struggle with your voice. I remember my first 5 years as a teacher, I was blaring, hey, yeah, yeah. Yeah, then I had this throat issue. I would, check, throat ache, and they said it was an overextension of my throat. Even a doctor said I should relax. Although when I took a 3 days break, I remember I felt really better. They also told me to maybe calm down on cold drinks and go for something warm, which helped. But at the end of the day, as a teacher, you might as well struggle with your throat. Yeah, I know some teachers here that immediately I said I had problems with my throat. They're like, oh, I use this. What? We're all on this boat. So take note of that. You might struggle. So I wish I had, it's not a regret, but it's a lesson for you as a new teacher or old teachers also. Let me know if you've had issues with your throat. I would really want to know and the solution for that. Number six is you need your energy. So try to preserve your energy as much as possible. I wish I had done that earlier. I remember there was a time I was checked and I had this high blood pressure just because I felt I had the energy and I was also using. This might be related to the point I said earlier about sleeping. So you need your energy. So what I try to do is that I conserve my energy towards the beginning of my lessons and expand it towards the end of my lessons. So this way I have it balanced. So for example, I sit more during the beginning of my lesson. Although some schools you don't get to sit, but that's why I work in a center, but practical. But if you work in a school, try to maybe you conserve it. You know, all those shouting at students, and don't do that. You don't have to shout. So teaching is a stressful job. Try as much as possible that before you do something, while you're trying to keep your lessons fun, try to see that is this thing really necessary? Is running after a child really necessary? Is shouting really necessary? These are ways for you to manage your energy and conserve your energy and do something more with it. Number seven point is I wish I asked more questions. And now it's not no more regret. I think I've learned my lessons. I ask a lot of questions now. When I don't understand something, I'm out there. Hey, hey, I this is my opinion on this. Several years ago, I was always of the opinion I wouldn't say I was the best teacher in my like own realm, but one thing I discovered was my methods work. I would teach. I would students understood. Students understood my questions. Then there was a time they went for a professional exam, and in the school, I think it was when I was a class teacher, and my students had an average of 71%. It was a pass, but I discovered that other teachers had 75 as the average, 75, 76. So if I saw myself as a good teacher, well, students also determine that. So why was my average score, lower than other teachers? Then I started asking questions from experienced teachers. One thing I discovered was, okay, yeah, my method might be at the time, might have been fun for the students, but sometimes there's something we call retention. There are some quizzes, some questions you ask in subsequent classes that you need to retain information, help them remember. There are also games that you need to teach or have fun with the student. That it's not just about playing games; it's about retaining that information. So these are the things that I have learned over the course of 8 years, asking questions from teachers, asking them, "What's your method? How do you do this?" Sometimes now I remember when I came to Kazakhstan, Astana to be specific, and working for a center, I would go to another teacher's class to sit as a student just to watch the way they teach their styles. And I discovered their styles are totally different from mine. And I would take note of the things I liked about it, the things I noticed the students responded well. I took note of those things, and yeah. Also, I think I took some English courses, some lesson language courses, ESL teacher courses also, and I also took note of some things you need to learn as a teacher, the psychology of students, the intelligence of students, things like that. You need to keep improving yourself. Number eight is that I have I have never been a culprit of this, but might be a lesson for you as somebody learning that. You should learn to treat your students with respect. It doesn't matter their age. Respect them. I have had one student tell me, the reason I like you is that you respect my opinion. You respect what I say. Some teachers out there, when they see their students, they believe their students are way below them and they have no right to their opinions. They have no right to what they have to say. This way, they just ride on them. Let me put it that way. They ride on them, and which is not good enough. As a teacher, you get to mentor them, show that what their thoughts, their ideas matter, and don't never you let them feel inferior in any way. Boost their confidence. I'm not saying lie to them. I'm not. There are ways you have constructive criticism that doesn't hurt their feelings. Don't step on them. Don't do that. Let them feel worthy of your respect. When they do something bad, reprimand them. I'm not saying don't do that, but respectfully. Yeah, they're your students, but they're not slaves. Number nine is to set expectations. I think this might connect with one of the lessons I said about planning, routine, set expectations. But here in terms of the topic, before I would just come to class, I would go to classes, write the topic on the board, ask questions, then jump into lesson, blah blah blah. But I have learned over the years to let the student expect something at the end of the class. By the end of the class, this is what you get to learn. This is what you tend to do with what you've learned. I think language learning has taught me this critical lesson that not all we have two types of motivation. We have the extrinsic and we have the intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is I want to learn this. I am willing. I just love this. Extrinsic is that you want to learn something based on the fact that you need it for something, maybe promotion. Now, people with now we have the pros and cons, we have outliers. Some students, they really, how do I say this? They are interested in learning, so you don't have to force them. Then there's some students that their parents want them to learn for the sake of their future, and they have little or no interest in learning the language. Now, this is where the problem is. These students, you need to set an expectations for them. Set expectations for them. Let them understand that when you learn this, this is what you get to use it for. So most times when I'm teaching my students, or when I teach my students new words, a new topic, I try to make them understand that when you learn chicken, you can use chicken in this aspect. You get to use it here, even in your professional. I know what they need, I know what they want to do, and I tell them this is when you get to use it. That way, it motivates them. They want to reach that goal faster. Lesson number 10. This one I struggled with it. In fact, I hated it until 2 years ago, and that's writing a plan. I used to believe that writing plans was for boring teachers, and I felt that my head teacher back then just wanted to punish me. Yeah, I felt that. I sincerely felt my head teacher back then wanted to punish me. Then a few years ago, I worked in an organization, also an English center, and I was asked to write a plan. Now, this time, I was asked to write a plan and plan together with another teacher, just work together and make it happen. Then I got into it. While planning, I decided to put the document in a Notion file just to see how it goes. Then after that, I tried using the plan for my students. Then the next year, I tried using it and I felt it was so easy. I didn't have to look for pages. I didn't have to look for what's it called, titles, pictures, or anything. I had everything planned. I had my expectations set. I even had the games to play set there. It was extremely easy. Guess what I did? I sat down for, I think there was a holiday, and I sat for that 1 week and planned all levels of English language, different books. I planned a whole course. So I planned for B1. I hope to show you later. I planned for B1, B2, B3, C1, and C2 levels. Yeah, so if you are part of those people that don't write lesson notes, tell you you have lost a disciple. It's beautiful to have a plan. It's so beautiful. Number 11 is let your no's be no's. One thing I do as a teacher is that I rarely say no. What do I mean? I make sure my students are always in the situation that it's always a positive answer. So when I say no, they understand that it is a no and they know what it means. Now, your question is, what if they don't, what if you say no and they don't respect it? Yeah. Well, there's a place of punishment, there's a place of ignoring the students. Some students are, they want the attention. You should understand that English is just a subject. That's what I do currently. You might be a mathematics teacher, you might be something, but there are also other psychological reasons where students, or baggage where students brought to your class, or they bring to your class, and you get to work with that too. There's a child that maybe the parents ignore at home. There's a child that parents shout at home. There's a child that, a lot of situations like that. As a teacher, you've got to be stern. They will test your patience. They will try to see how far is too far with you. Now, I'm not saying attack or something. One thing I have learned to do is that I have three stages of teaching. When I warn jokingly, then let's say it's a matter of, let's use this phone as example. When a student brings phone to class or presses phone consistently in class, I want them, please put your phone down. And next time I tell everybody to put their phones down. Now, this student has seen that their action has affected everyone else, or I tell everybody to put their phones on my table. So their actions have affected. Now, we have some very obstinate students that they would still disagree with you. They're very rebellious. They will not drop their phones. Yeah, I've seen situations like that. They refuse to drop their phones. Now, in this situation, do not go into a struggle of physical band with them. Leave them alone. So one thing I've learned is that when a student does that, I ignore them for the purpose of other students, for the sake of other students. I let them be. Other students have seen what they see what is happening. They're trying to see what now what you feel in your head is that they're trying to see who the boss is, the alpha male. No, don't do that. So I try to ignore, I leave the child alone and I focus on other students. One thing I have noticed is that there's a mental aspect of being alone, being ignored. That when you ignore them, you ask others questions, you don't ask them questions. They want to ask you questions, you refuse. Now, is this the best method? Maybe I also need a form of training to be better. But I have discovered that this method has helped make students, I don't want to say bend to my will or listen or respect my opinions or respect my no's. And next time I tell them to drop something, they know what comes up. I am not going to shout at them. I am not going to report them. I handle them my way. They don't learn. And if that continues consistently, they leave my classroom. Yeah, I recommend they leave, and that's it. So there's no way I'm running to their parents and they're reporting. We're not jumping to do that. This is my kingdom. This is what I do. So if you don't do it my way and you feel you're too big or obstinate to do something, then so let your no's be no, and don't jump into a shouting scene with your students. Number 12 is that I wish I had backups. I remember a class I had. I got to my classroom, the projector wasn't working. What's it called? Projector wasn't working. There was a power surge or something, and I had nothing to do with that. That was a few years, many years ago. Now, I don't think I have had situations where things go south, and my class was still fun because I had a lot of backup. On my phone, I have class games. On my phone, I have speaking topics. I have a lot of things. Even if my phone doesn't work, I have a lot of other things that we can do in terms of conversation. I could sit with you and still converse with you for over an hour. And that has come over the years with experience. You might also get that too as a new teacher. But what I'm saying is have a backup in mind. If this doesn't work, sometimes you start a topic or start something and your students are, I don't want to say bored, but they don't seem to be learning anything. They don't seem to understand. It's either you change your method. Even when I teach, I try to have two methods of teaching. If I teach it this way and they don't understand, I probably go for a pictorial form or illustration form of teaching. Have a backup in mind. It helps a lot. And number 13, which might be my last point, is that as a teacher, always improve yourself. Yeah, it's not a form of regret. I've always found myself in situations where I buy a course, I read something up. I am a paid member of Medium. I always try to improve myself. I buy courses, I go for certifications because as a teacher, you are a fountain of knowledge and you must never go dry. Always keep yourself running. Never say this is the information because when you know something now, in the next 2 or 3 years, it might something might must have changed or might have changed. Imagine you as a teacher saying Twitter. Just this is just a colloquial example. Imagine you as a teacher saying Twitter. Imagine you as a teacher saying actress, because the modern language, feminism and everything. Even when you want to explain stuff like that, you get to tell them it was, and this is why this is. So these are the situations we have, and yeah, we have stuff like that. These are the things. Some of the things I wish I had done better, and some of the things I believe you will learn as a young teacher and also as a practice, a training teacher. What do you think? I would like you to write your comments down there. And also, if this has made any sense to you, um, subscribe, like, and also watch my next video. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.